psychic vamp. Understanding psychic vampirism and mastering the skills required to counteract it are critical to our personal growth and well-being. Whether in our personal lives or in the work setting, it is important that we understand the forces that influence our success and the quality of our lives. A working knowledge of psychic vampirism enables us to acquire essential empowerment skills, while at the same time, helping us to better understand ourselves and our interactions with others. The energies of life. Psychic vampirism is fundamentally an energy phenomenon. Understanding psychic vampirism, and more importantly, mastering the empowerment strategies related to it, require a closer look at not one but two critical energy systems, the one within ourselves and the other in the higher cosmos. Together, these two important systems constantly interact to energize our existence as a life force entity. The forms and manifestations of energy are endless. The universe itself is built on energy. All that exists, both seen and unseen, tangible and intangible, is an expression of energy. Whether we scan the heavens with the naked eye or survey the Earth's natural wonders around us, we see energy. Whether we probe deep space through a telescope or observe a unicellular organism through a microscope, we see energy. Each work of nature whispers in our ear, "I am energy." At a deeply personal level, when we look within ourselves, we see energy. Thinking, feeling, acting, and simply being, all are manifestations of energy. The simple assertion, "I am energy," is among those most elemental and yet profound observations we can make about ourselves and the nature of our existence in the universe. Energy as a fundamental life force not only sustains life, it gave rise to life in the beginning. As already noted, there are two major systems of life force energy: the internal energy system, which exists within ourselves, and the cosmic energy system, which exists throughout the known universe and beyond. Designed to work together, these life force energy systems provide the propelling force that energizes our total being, mentally, physically, and spiritually. Among the major purposes of our existence are, first, to develop our potential for a powerful internal energy system, and second, to bring that inner system into balance and attunement with the higher cosmic system. Energizing origin of our existence. Only through achieving these goals can we find meaning to our lives and eventually reach our highest destiny. In the following discussion, we will examine these two energy systems and explore their relevance to psychic vampirism. The internal energy system. A strong internal energy system has two important functions related to psychic vampirism. First, it ensures an abundant supply of essential energy within the self, thus eliminating any need for psychic vampire tactics in meeting our personal energy needs, and second, it repels any external threat of a psychic vampire attack on our energy system. The self's internal energy system, like other aspects of our being, consists of three essential interactive components: mental, physical, and spiritual. Although the mental and physical aspects of our makeup have long been accepted by conventional thinking as critical to our personal well-being, only recently has mainstream science begun to recognize the spiritual component and its importance in daily life. Reflecting this trend is the American Psychological Association's recent listing of recommended readings for psychologists, which included for the first time books designed to introduce spirituality into the professional practice of psychology. Of particular interest is a recommended book on theistic spirituality, which holds that human beings have an eternal spirit and that God communicates with them through spiritual channels. Joining psychology in demonstrating a greater awareness and appreciation of the spiritual nature of our makeup is modern medicine. The healing value of faith, prayer, and meditation is now recognized in many medical settings. In my clinical practice, I routinely use spiritual strategies because of their singular therapeutic benefits. In future medicine, promoting healing, balance, and well-being through spiritual channels will undoubtedly increase. As we will later see, a major characteristic found among psychic vampires is the absence of inner balance and well-being. By the same token, a state of inner balance and well-being is one of our best defenses against psychic vampirism. In finally acknowledging the importance of spirituality, modern health sciences have edged closer to recognizing a higher cosmic energy system as the life force counterpart of the self's internal energy system. Consistent with that recognition is an emerging acceptance of our cosmic origin. From there, it requires no quantum leap to conclude with reasonable certainty the indestructible nature of our existence as a life force entity. Every aspect of our being is energized and sustained by the constant flow of life force energy. When we are enriched with life force energy, our mental, physical, and spiritual functions flourish. But when we are deficient in essential life force energy, they falter. Psychic vampirism, in whatever its form, taps into our energy resources and consumes vital life force energy. In the worst scenario, the internal energy system can malfunction and critical coping resources can become virtually exhausted. Eventually, the growth process can become totally arrested, particularly in instances of severe and repeated vampire attacks. It becomes plausible then that mastery of effective vampire protection strategies is indeed critical to our total growth and evolvement as human beings. The flow of life force energy within the self has a definite direction. By exercising its energizing powers, the internal energy system not only maintains itself, it opens new growth channels and generates new growth energy. Failing to exercise its energizing potentials, or even worse, expressing itself negatively through self-destructive channels, leads to energy loss, growth blockage, and, in the long term, damage to the system itself. It would follow that an empowered internal energy system is not only critical to our personal growth, it is our first line of defense against psychic vampirism. Fortunately, we can take command of the internal energy system by activating and directing its functions. This can be done in somewhat the same way that an electrical control panel directs the flow of electrical energy. A powerful energy control panel, with switches and lines, exists within each of us just waiting to be used. We can close down old, inefficient energy channels and open up new, more efficient channels. We can activate totally new mental channels to enrich intellectual processes or stimulate totally new mental functions, such as accelerating learning, improving memory, and increasing creativity, to mention only a few of the possibilities. By interacting with the energy control panel within, we can close down channels that energize destructive anxieties, depression, inferiority, and inner conflicts, all of which increase our vulnerability to psychic vampirism in its multiple forms. We can open up new physical channels to energize biological organs and systems. We can fortify the body's immune system, accelerate healing, and even slow the aging process. We can shut down energy channels that enfeeble the physical body and render it vulnerable to psychic vampirism. By taking charge of the control panel within, we can open spiritual channels that connect us to the highest cosmic source of pure energy. We can rediscover our cosmic roots and regain our oneness with the universe. We can unleash an unlimited flow of spiritual renewal. Infused with new spiritual energy, we can emerge enlightened, emboldened, enriched, and fully empowered. In addition to its major mental, physical, and spiritual components, the internal energy system has a built-in energy defense potential with the capacity to repel any invading energy force, including psychic vampirism. That capacity functions best when our internal energy channels are open and functional. But even then, our deliberate intervention is often required to activate the energy system's defense potential. Fortunately, strategies are now available to empower the internal energy system and activate each of its specific functions. Aside from opening up new energy channels and closing down inefficient ones, we can repair any damage to the internal energy system and reinforce its multiple functions. Integrate the mental, physical, and spiritual sources of energy within the self. Fortify the energy system's defense and coping potentials. Attune and balance the self's energy system to the highest cosmic source of unlimited energy. We will later present step-by-step procedures designed to achieve each of these empowerment goals. Because the human energy system is mental, physical, and spiritual, psychic vampirism is more than simply a physical phenomenon. It is also mental and spiritual. Hence, to be effective, psychic vampire defense and coping strategies must address each of these components and their related functions. For instance, mental components can include strategies that activate the mind's power to confront and subdue the onslaught of psychic vampirism. Physical components can include strategies that promote a balanced physical state that spontaneously repels psychic vampirism. Finally, spiritual components can include strategies that connect us to the higher cosmos and create a protective shield that envelopes us totally. Together, these mental, physical, and spiritual components, when appropriately incorporated into step-by-step procedures, will interact to generate abundant energy and an empowered energy system that simply cannot fail. Fortunately, the same procedures that empower the energy system invariably enrich every aspect of our lives. Through them, we discover new growth resources we become empowered to achieve important life goals, we learn to deal more effectively with stress, and perhaps most importantly, we become acutely aware of our connection to the highest cosmic sources of power and enlightenment. Success and personal fulfillment become actual realities rather than distant, nebulous possibilities. The outer cosmic energy system, like the energy system within ourselves, is an interactive system. It is the source of life force energy in its purest form. Once created, cosmic life force energy cannot be destroyed. It constantly interacts with our own internal energy system to sustain it and ensure our survival as a perpetual life force entity. To put it simply, the cosmic energy system is our ever-present partner in the higher cosmos. Without it, we would not exist. As energized beings whose origin is cosmic, we are each endowed with a unique cosmic makeup, which we call our cosmic genotype. Our cosmic genotype is the spiritual counterpart of our biological genotype, or genetic makeup. Put in analogy form, our cosmic genotype is to the spirit as our biological genotype is to the body. While the makeup of our physical body varies from life to life, the makeup of our cosmic body remains unchanged, thereby ensuring our individuality and the uniqueness of our cosmic identity. Although we may require many different lifetimes with many different interactive roles in many different cultures to achieve our highest growth potentials, each life retains its basic, indestructible cosmic design. Within that unique sameness which provides continuity from life to life, each lifetime offers a new biological genotype with new resources and opportunities for our personal evolvement. Since we are all different in our cosmic identity and design, no two souls are exactly alike, we can each contribute to the world in ways different from those of any other human being. Today, perhaps more than ever before, it is critical that we recognize the importance of diversity, both within ourselves and throughout the globe. In recent years, enlightened leaders around the world have cried out for diversity. They figured out early on that the solution to some of our most pressing global problems, war, hunger, disease, environmental pollution, and so forth, requires the skills and cooperation of the world's diverse cultures. Like globally oriented leaders who were ahead of their times, many modern business and industrial organizations now actively promote diversity. Employees representing a variety of backgrounds, specializations, and orientations bring with them invaluable resources that enrich the organization and promote global progress, which is particularly critical to international firms. While diversity and individual uniqueness are critical to global progress, our similarities as human beings are likewise important. Whatever our backgrounds and individual differences, we are more alike than different. By recognizing our similarities, we understand each other better, and we work together more harmoniously in achieving our common goals. Appreciating our similarities while at the same time valuing our individual differences is the hallmark of cultural progress and productive social interaction. As we will later discover, psychic vampires are often rigid in their perceptions of others and intolerant of values and orientations that differ even moderately from their own. As a unique life force entity, our personal growth exists on an endless cosmic continuum that reaches into our most distant past and stretches to infinity. In the beginning, we were not created to age and die, but to live and grow. All the accumulated experiences of our past lives, along with our between-life experiences, are a part of our cosmic lifespan, which is eternal. Even our existence before our first incarnation, which we commonly call our pre-incarnate life, remains an integral component of our total being. Although many of our past experiences are stored in the subconscious and thus unknown to conscious awareness, they nevertheless remain an integral part of our being. Because our cosmic identity was fixed at the very beginning of our existence, we are at any moment in time the totality of our experiences, nothing is ever permanently lost. A major task in each lifetime is not only to discover new knowledge, but to retrieve the knowledge buried deeply in the subconscious. Given knowledge of our past life experiences, we can identify and resolve the subconscious conflicts of past life origin that continue to influence our life and in many instances impede our growth. We can uncover important subconscious resources and activate dormant potentials required to solve present life problems. The resultant possibilities for enlightenment and new growth are simply unlimited. In psychic vampirism, the task of rediscovering the self is almost always interrupted by either resistance or simply a lack of motivation. The inner and outer energy systems underlying our existence can be seen as interacting fountains of limitless growth potential. While their functions differ, both fountains are essential sources of sustaining energy. The higher cosmic fountain is, however, preeminent, its energizing and sustaining power is infinite. Even when biological systems fail and death finally leans against the door, the outer cosmic fountain energizes our safe transition to the other side. It ensures our permanent survival as a conscious, life force entity. Upon our transition to the other side, it instantly restores us to the highest peaks of all our past development, and from there, it energizes our future growth. We are at once restored, rejuvenated, and renewed in that higher dimension where all the abundant resources we need for our continued growth are always present. Although the cosmic fountain of energy is always available to us, it is up to each us to responsibly use it. By accessing that fountain and tapping its powerful energy, we can instantly add meaning and value to our lives. Energized by the cosmic fountain of life, we can overcome adversity and find new hope and peace. By accessing that fountain, we can become energized to determine our own destiny and achieve our highest goals. Imbued with abundant cosmic energy, we can accelerate our growth and experience a deeper meaning to our existence. In a word, we can become empowered. What better defense against psychic vampirism than to be energized by the highest fountain of power in the cosmos? By interacting with the cosmic energy system, we can fortify our inner system and maximize its capacity to generate powerful energy. As a result, we can become attuned and balanced, both within ourselves and with the cosmos. Such a cosmic connection invariably gives rise to a more positive self-identity, a sense of personal worth, and feelings of security and well-being, all of which are themselves energizing. Imbued and revitalized with positive energy, we function with independence and self-reliance, characteristics which are either weak or totally absent in the psychic vampire. A major characteristic of the cosmic energy system is its multiple planes of energy, each with its own particular characteristics and functions. Once linked to the cosmic system of energy, we can identify those planes that are relevant to our present goals, and then draw from their specialized resources. We will later explore a variety of cosmic energy planes and develop advanced strategies that enable us to access their powers. Admittedly, neither realizing our highest growth potentials nor achieving our highest life goals is always easy. At one time or another, we all encounter conditions that slow our progress and challenge our resolve. Certain adverse life situations can be particularly distressful. Examples are life-threatening illness, severe financial reversals, and threats to our personal security and well-being, all of which can impair important areas of our functioning. Fortunately, adversity in the long haul is no match for the cosmically empowered self. Even the most extreme adversity cannot destroy the inner potential for greatness. When attuned, balanced, and energized, we can learn from adversity and overcome the repelling forces that, at first, seemed beyond our control and impossible to bear. Encountering the adversities of life and successfully overcoming them are among our most difficult yet valuable challenges. The handclasp of power. Fortunately, the energy system within each of us is always receptive to our empowerment efforts. We can deliberately generate a powerful inner state that protects the system and maximizes its energizing potentials. We can repair damage to the system, revitalize ineffective mechanisms, and open up totally new energy pathways. We can attune and balance the system to the highest cosmic source of pure energy. We can empower the system to resist the onslaught of any negative force, including psychic vampirism. The handclasp of power is designed to achieve each of these important goals. This powerful strategy, which requires only a few minutes, is one of our best defenses against psychic vampirism. Step 1. Body scan. Settle back and while breathing slowly and rhythmically, mentally scan your body from your head downward, briefly pausing at areas of tension. Visualize the tension as a shadowy mist and your conscious presence a luminous glow. Let the glow of consciousness repel the shadowy mist and replace it with bright, new, radiant energy. Take plenty of time for the luminous glow of your conscious presence to fully permeate your physical body. Step 2. Focusing. Focus your conscious awareness on your solar plexus, and think of that region as your energy control center. Visualize your conscious presence at that center as a bright, supercharged force that activates and fortifies your total energy system. Step 3. Self-infusion. As you remain consciously centered, visualize energy pathways extending outward from your inner control center. You can now identify blocked pathways and open them up to unleash a totally new flow of life force energy. You can now replace old, non-functional pathways with shining, new energy channels. Let the supercharging flow of powerful energy illuminate your total being, inside and out. Step 4. Cosmic infusion. Turn your hands upward as you sense radiant beams of pure cosmic energy entering your palms and then spreading inward to bathe and energize every part of your being. Sense vibrant cosmic energy flowing throughout your energy system, saturating it totally with bright cosmic energy. Step 5. Attunement and balance. Clasp your hands as a symbol of your oneness with the cosmos. Affirm, I am now totally balanced and attuned to the higher cosmos. You can use the hand clasp at will as a cue to activate the empowering effects of the full procedure. With practice, this procedure becomes increasingly effective in energizing, balancing, and attuning the energy system. This procedure also promotes alertness and clear thinking while protecting against the invasion of negative forces in any form. It is especially useful when practiced prior to important meetings, particularly when they involve challenging negotiations and problem solving. Having practiced the full procedure, you can use the inconspicuous handclasp cue almost any time. It can be used during conferences and public presentations to instantly increase your effectiveness and sense of command over the situation at hand. Many speakers and performers use the cue routinely both before and during public appearances. The handclasp of power is a basic, all-purpose strategy that generates a powerful, energized state of growth readiness throughout the self. When practiced regularly, it can increase the effectiveness of each of the empowerment procedures that follows throughout this book. Summary: 2 major systems of energy constantly interact to sustain our existence and energize our growth. The unfailing energy system in the higher cosmos supports our existence and ensures our survival as a conscious life force entity from life to life and beyond. Its counterpart, the energy system within each of us, is designed to generate an abundant inner flow of mental, physical, and spiritual energy. It is our ever-present link to the higher cosmos. Only when we balance and attune our internal energy system to the highest cosmic source of energy can we achieve our ultimate destiny for growth and greatness. Psychic vampirism in its many forms is a threat to our personal actualization and well-being. Fortunately, procedures are now available to repel psychic vampirism, fortify our internal energy system, and finally bring us into complete oneness with the cosmic source of our existence. One-on-one psychic vampirism. One-on-one psychic vampirism is a form of social vampirism in which one person, typically called the psychic vampire, extracts energy from another person, typically called the host victim. The results are a temporary surge of new energy for the psychic vampire and an immediate loss of energy for the unfortunate host victim. As with other types of psychic vampirism, one-on-one psychic vampirism seems to be very widespread. If you take a moment to reflect, you may recall having experienced this unpleasant phenomenon which drained you of energy and left you both mentally and physically fatigued. You may have, in fact, sensed the violation of your personal space and the actual siphoning of energy from your body as the vampire encounter progressed. Once aware of these effects, you may have sought polite ways to end the intrusion. Even if you did not attribute the energy loss and resultant fatigue to psychic vampirism, the experience may have been so intensely exhaustive that you found yourself more guarded in similar future situations. 37. Or you may have avoided them altogether. It is interesting to note that some of the terms we use to describe such unpleasant social encounters clearly imply psychic vampirism. A pain in the neck, under my skin, and a draining experience are examples. Fortunately for most of us, our social interactions are usually energizing as well as rewarding in other ways. And while many of our interactions involve a two-way exchange of energy, they do not necessarily suggest one-on-one vampirism at work, even when the benefits of the interaction are not equal. We have probably all participated in social interactions that were somewhat one-sided. In fact, deliberately managing or manipulating social interactions to gain a particular goal or advantage is generally tolerated in our culture, and in many situations it is a social expectation. Familiar examples are the bombardment of persuasive communication seen regularly in politics, religion, fundraising, and advertising. Perhaps with some reluctance, we could add to these our own experiences in which we orchestrated situations and interactions that expressly benefited us socially or professionally. But while these examples alone do not indicate psychic vampirism, they do suggest certain inclinations that, if cultivated, could lead to active vampirism. Experienced psychic vampires, in fact, often present a long history of manipulating people and situations to advance their careers or other self-interests, a pattern that became increasingly dominant and eventually led to full-fledged psychic vampirism. In an effort to determine the frequency of vampire-like social interactions, students enrolled in a social psychology course at Athens State College, now university, conducted a study in which they interviewed 100 shoppers at a mall during a busy holiday season. To control bias and promote validity, the interaction interview guide used for the study intentionally omitted such potentially loaded terms as psychic vampire and psychic vampirism. Here is the 12-item interview guide with the percentage of responses obtained for each item. See following page. A large majority of respondents in this survey viewed themselves as socially outgoing, 82%. A slightly larger number viewed their social interactions as typically satisfying or rewarding, 84%, although many of them qualified their responses with such. Interaction interview guide. I am a student enrolled in a social psychology course at Athens State College. In partial fulfillment of course requirements, I am conducting a survey concerning social interaction. Would you take just a moment to answer a few questions about your own social interactions? 1. Do you think of yourself as a socially outgoing person? 82% yes, 5% no, 13% undecided. 2. As a rule, are your interactions with other persons usually satisfying? 84% yes, 12% no, 4% undecided. 3. Do you find special satisfaction through your interactions with a particular individual or individuals? 80% yes, 20% no, 0% undecided. 4. Do you sometimes feel energized or full of energy following your interactions with a certain person or persons? 92% yes, 6% no, 2% undecided. 5. Do you sometimes feel fatigued or low of energy following your interactions with a certain person or persons? 97% yes, 2% no, 1% undecided. 6. In your opinion, do certain persons tend to contribute or give off energy to other persons through their interactions with them? 79% yes, 10% no, 11% undecided. 7. In your opinion, do certain persons tend to drain energy from other persons through their interactions with them? 85% yes, 2% no, 13% undecided. 8. Do you sometimes energize others by contributing energy to them during your interactions with them? 40% yes, 21% no, 39% undecided. 9. Are you sometimes energized by receiving energy from others during your interactions with them? 80% yes, 11% no, 9% undecided. 10. Do you interact regularly with someone who drains energy from you? 24% yes, 42% no, 34% undecided. 11. Do you sometimes avoid interacting with certain persons because they seem to drain you of energy? 88% yes, 5% no, 7% undecided. 12. Do you interact regularly with someone who energizes you by contributing energy to you? 10% yes, 88% no, 2% undecided. Thank you for your participation in this survey. Expressions as more or less or I think so. A very high percent of the survey respondents, 97%, reported past social interactions that left them fatigued or low of energy. 85% of the respondents believe that certain individuals tend to drain energy from others through their interactions with them. A slightly lower percent, 79%, believe that certain individuals tend to contribute energy to others. A large number of our respondents, 88%, reported that they sometimes avoided interacting with certain individuals who, they believed, drained energy from them. Only 40% of the respondents believed they contributed energy to others during their interactions with them, whereas 80% believed they received energy from others during their interactions. 24% of the respondents admitted that they interacted regularly with persons who drained them of energy, whereas only 10% of the respondents admitted regularly interacting with persons who contributed energy to them. Taken together, the results of this survey suggest that vampire-like social interactions are common, with almost everyone having experienced some form of energy transaction in which they experienced a depletion of their energy resources. By the same token, almost everyone reports having experienced a new infusion of energy resulting from their social interactions. It is conceivable, of course, that fluctuations in our energy levels could be explained as a self-contained function of the internal energy system rather than the result of psychic vampirism. But while changes in one's inner energy levels can indeed occur independently of psychic vampirism, a vast majority of this study's respondents reported being consciously aware of the actual draining of energy during their interactions with others, a clear suggestion of psychic vampirism at work. One of the most subtle forms of psychic vampirism seems to occur during social interactions involving interpersonal communication. Whether verbal or nonverbal, the communication process can be seen as an energy interaction with either empowering or disempowering consequences. Typically, positive communications generate empowering interactions. For instance, messages of hope, acceptance, and love are typically empowering to both the sender and receiver. In contrast, negative messages tend to generate disempowering interactions. But even negative messages can be empowering when appropriately managed by the target receiver. For instance, when we ward off incoming messages of bigotry, prejudice, exclusion, and hate, our energy system's resistance functions are fortified and the potentially enfeebling message is neutralized. Furthermore, the sender's energy system, including its negative sending capacity, is denied reinforcement. At a global level, it would follow that only through active resistance on a massive scale can the vampirism of intolerance and injustice be de-energized and finally banished from the globe. Such resistance must, however, include efforts to infuse the globe with the empowering energies of tolerance and justice. The mechanics of one-on-one psychic vampirism. One-on-one psychic vampirism is driven by an inadequate internal energy system that demands life force energy from a host victim. Developmental in nature, one-on-one vampirism is often expressed spontaneously in its early stages of development. But in its full-blown form, it usually consists of acquired skills that are deliberately used to replenish the vampire's internal supply of energy. Unfortunately, simply replenishing the deficient energy supply does not fix the faulty energy system itself. Consequently, psychic vampirism becomes a controlling force that compels the vampire to invade the energy systems of selected host victims. Eventually, the vampire drive becomes so compulsive that it seems to take on a life of its own. Only recently have we begun to figure out the complex mechanics involved in one-on-one vampirism as an energy phenomenon. As noted earlier in this book, energy is more than physical, it is mental and spiritual as well. As a multidimensional life force, it sustains our conscious existence, not only in the physical realm but in afterlife as well. As earlier noted, among the most important challenges we experience in life are, first, to progressively develop a more powerful life force energy system within ourselves, and second, to keep that system in constant attunement and balance with the higher cosmos. The psychic vampire has failed to some extent on both counts. Driven by a deficient system and either unable or unwilling to correct it, psychic vampires turn to the energy system of others to meet their energy needs. The unfortunate consequences encompass every aspect of the vampire's growth and development. The internal energy system is progressively enfeebled, social interactions are disrupted, and adjustment resources are eventually exhausted. Our studies of one-on-one psychic vampirism focused first on identifying and measuring the personal characteristics associated with the phenomenon and second on formulating workable, step-by-step empowerment procedures for use not only to empower the victim or potential victim of psychic vampirism but also to liberate the psychic vampire from a disempowering lifestyle of psychic vampirism. Multidimensional in design, our research included personal interviews, questionnaires, case studies, psychological testing, electrophotographic recordings, Kirlian photography, and analysis of the human aura, which is discussed in the next chapter. In some instances, we used dream analysis and hypnosis, including past life regression. Our investigative methods consistently avoided such zero-loaded terms as vampire, victim, and vampirism, preferring instead more non-threatening yet operational terms such as energy recipient, DD0 energy donor, energy interaction, and energy transfer process. Energy deficiency, given the many variations of one-on-one vampirism, along with its developmental nature, identifying the characteristics associated with the phenomenon and accurately measurement them were daunting tasks. Throughout, our approach emphasized psychic vampirism, not as a dark aberration, but as a constellation of characteristics which exist on a continuum of intensity. Based on the early findings of our studies, we developed two objective tests for measuring tendencies toward one-on-one psychic vampirism. Recently revised, the first test, interactive questionnaire EAR, see pages 44-45, measures one-on-one vampirism in one's interactions with people in general. Also recently revised, the second test, interactive questionnaire, measures one-on-one vampirism in one's relationship with a particular partner. As you will note, neither test mentions vampire or vampirism in a deliberate effort to make the tests as non-threatening and accurate as possible. Using the scoring key, the higher the score on this test, the greater the tendency towards psychic vampirism in one's interactions with people in general. A score range of 21 to 25 suggests a severe tendency towards psychic vampirism. A score range of 16 to 20 suggests a marked tendency towards psychic vampirism. A score range of 11 to 15 suggests a moderate tendency towards psychic vampirism. A score of 10 or below suggests no significant tendency towards psychic vampirism. To evaluate the tendency towards psychic vampirism in one's relationship with a particular partner, we formulated the interactive questionnaire EAR as follows on pages 46 to 47. As with interactive questionnaire EAR, the higher the score on this test, the greater the tendency towards psychic vampirism in one's relationship with a particular partner. A score range of 21 to 25 suggests a severe tendency towards psychic vampirism. A score range of 16 to 20 suggests a marked tendency towards psychic vampirism. A score range of 11 to 15 suggests a moderate tendency towards psychic vampirism. A score of 10 or below suggests no significant tendency towards psychic vampirism. In a study of one-on-one psychic vampirism among undergraduate college students, we administered the interactive questionnaire EAR to 400 volunteers drawn from the college student population. Over half of them, 57%, showed a tendency toward psychic vampirism in their relationships with people in general. Of that number, 28% showed a moderate tendency toward psychic vampirism, 18% showed a marked tendency toward psychic vampirism, and 11% showed a severe tendency toward psychic vampirism. Interaction questionnaire ear, people in general, name, age, gender, directions. This questionnaire is designed to measure certain aspects of your interactions with people in general. Read each statement carefully. If the statement is true as applied to you, circle T. If the statement is false as applied to you, circle F. Often depend on others to do things for me that I could easily do for myself. I believe people are basically honest. Often act on impulse with little thought of the consequences. Often experience a fascinating connection to a total stranger. Am an easygoing person. Most people are out for what they can get in life. Usually find a way of avoiding unpleasant or demanding tasks. Most people make friends because they are useful to them in some way. Often do risky things just for the thrill of it. I am usually determined to get the things I want one way or another. When I am mistreated by someone, I usually find a way of getting even. To thrive on the energies of people around me. Most people are willing to use others to get ahead in life. Am usually forthright in my relationships with others. I am very much concerned about global problems such as pollution, hunger, and poverty. I find satisfaction in taking advantage of people who leave themselves open to it. Am usually open and honest in my relationships with others. I've learned the hard way not to trust people. Often help others who are less fortunate than myself. At times, I seem to drain energy from persons around me. When I do a favor for someone, I usually expect something in return. F22. Often make friends because they are useful to me in some way. F23. Most people would cheat if they thought they could get away with it. TF24. Am basically satisfied with my life. TF25. My life is full of meaning. Scoring key, allow 1 point for each of the following responses. Item 1T, 2F, 3T, 4T, 5F, 6T, 7T, 8T, 9T, 10T, 11T, 12T, 13T, 14F, 15F, 16T, 17F, 18T, 19F, 20T, 21T. Interaction questionnaire, partner relationship, name, age, gender, directions. This questionnaire is designed to measure certain aspects of your interactions with your partner. Read each statement carefully. If the statement is true as applied to you, circle T. If the statement is false as applied to you, circle FTF1. My partner is usually alert and full of energy when we are together. Am overly demanding in my relationship with my partner. I receive far more than I give in my relationship with my partner. I make most of the important decisions involving our relationship. In our relationship, my partner is usually submissive to my demands. My partner and I have each grown in our relationship together. My partner is a strong, independent person. When we disagree, my partner usually gives in to my opinions. Am usually forthright in my relationship with my partner. Am quite manipulative in my relationship with my partner. Am usually full of energy, even when I am separated from my partner. I depend on the energy I receive from my relationship with my partner. Should my relationship with my partner end, I would immediately seek another partner. My partner invests a great deal more energy in our relationship than I do. I find satisfaction in having a certain power over my partner. My partner frequently seems hesitant or doubtful regarding our relationship. My partner seldom complains of low energy or fatigue. I seem regularly to drain energy from my partner. To call upon my partner for help, even with things I could easily do for myself. Am the dominant force in my relationship with my partner. My partner usually seems energized by our relationship. F22. My partner and I have a mutually satisfying relationship. F23. I am frequently irritable and aggressive in my interactions with my partner. F24. I often take advantage of my partner in order to achieve my own goals or meet my own needs. F25. My relationship with my partner is one of mutual trust and respect. Scoring key, allow 1 point for each of the following responses. IRMALHI 2T ASLH4 2571, YSOF 70F 872 9BF 101 LP, 12T, 13T, 14T, 15T, 16T, 17F, 18T, 19T, 20T, 21F. Of the 400 subjects who took the interactive questionnaire year, 183 reported they were in a partner relationship and were administered interactive questionnaire to determine the prevalence of psychic vampirism in their relationships with their partners. The results revealed a strong relationship between the two questionnaires. Persons who demonstrated psychic vampire tendencies in their relationships with people in general tended to demonstrate similar psychic vampire tendencies in their relationships with their partners. Follow-up studies of volunteers from the general population revealed a distribution of one-on-one psychic vampire tendencies strongly similar to that of the college student population. Our studies found that both students and non-students who took either test invariably showed at least some of the characteristics associated with one-on-one psychic vampirism. As a word of caution, when using these instruments to test either oneself or others, interpreting the results should recognize the developmental nature of psychic vampirism and the continuum upon which this condition exists. Even a severe tendency towards psychic vampirism, either with people in general or with a particular partner at one time or another, does not conclusively signal the full-blown condition. Only when the tendency is so intense that it interferes with one's own well-being or with the well-being of others should it be considered active psychic vampirism. Almost always, full-blown psychic vampirism is associated with difficulty in such areas as job performance, home life, and, of course, social relationships. Unfortunately, psychic vampirism is all too often unrecognized as a potential source of these difficulties, even when other explanations have been ruled out. One of the striking findings of our studies was the extensive range of personal characteristics and behavioral patterns associated with one-on-one psychic vampirism. While some of our subjects who scored in the severe range of psychic vampirism were warm and outgoing, others were cold and withdrawn. Several viewed themselves as personally advanced and superior to others. Such a manifest superiority, of course, could be a reaction to repressed feelings of inadequacy. In contrast, others viewed themselves as inferior and weak. Many of them tended to be self-absorbed and immature. Other personal traits found among subjects scoring in the severe range were self-doubt, distrust of others, impulsive, low frustration tolerance, and hostility. Jealousy mixed with fear of abandonment often characterized their romantic relationships. When taken together, our studies identified the following 8 categories of one-on-one psychic vampire lifestyles. 1. The narcissistic vampire. As a group, narcissistic vampires have a grandiose sense of self-importance along with needs for attention and admiration that often reach back to early childhood. They view themselves as superior, however, their self-esteem is usually quite fragile. Their needs for acceptance and recognition drive them to overestimate their accomplishments while either discrediting or taking credit for the work of others. In the work setting, they often seek control of the decision-making process while exhibiting few of the skills required for responsible decision-making. Lacking empathy, narcissistic vampires tend to disregard the feelings of others while expecting others to be concerned about their welfare. As a group, they tend to be untrustworthy, disdainful, self-absorbed, and self-promoting. Undisciplined and exploitative, they do not hesitate to take advantage of others to achieve their goals. They are often pseudo-intellectuals or con artists with a superficial charm that can be temporarily disarming. They are, as a group, unreliable, critical, and pessimistic. Simplistic and immature in their views of right and wrong, they are quick to judge others. Authoritative and controlling in their social relationships, they have serious difficulty working with people. Their administrative and supervisory skills are extremely limited. They are typically distrustful of colleagues and superiors, as reflected in their excessive demands for documentation and writing of even minor issues. Frequently found in the academic setting, they are often aggressive publicity seekers who embellish and exaggerate their credentials as scholars. Their claims of Chapter 3 being skeptical thinkers are almost always a bid for attention or a reaction to their felt insecurities and shallow intellect. They characteristically react to their own lack of integrity by calling into question the integrity of others. The prognosis for the narcissistic vampire is extremely poor. 2. The schizoid vampire. In contrast to the narcissistic vampire, schizoid vampires are typically withdrawn and apathetic. They tend to be emotionally detached and uncomfortable in their social interactions except during their isolated vampire episodes. They are usually loners who have few if any close friends. Their romantic relationships are turbulent, fragile, and transient. They typically appear emotionally cold, but underneath their veneer of social indifference are painful feelings of insecurity and isolation. The paranoid vampire. A major characteristic of this vampire style is suspicion and distrust. Paranoid vampires usually expect the worst from people. They often believe they are being plotted against and exploited. Excessively suspicious and hostile, paranoid vampires scrutinize others in search for hidden meanings behind their remarks and actions. They bear grudges and are slow to forgive even minor slights or criticisms. Because their paranoia consumes enormous amounts of energy, they are among the most active psychic vampires. Often underlying their vampire attacks against others are efforts to either control or punish. They are quick to use vampire assaults for revenge or as counterattacks against persons who angered them or in their views mistreated them in some way. While insensitive to the misfortunes of others, paranoid vampires typically exaggerate their own misfortunes, which they often describe as horrible. The antisocial vampire. The antisocial vampire shows a long history of either disregarding or violating the rights of others. As a group, they do not hesitate to use deceit and manipulation to achieve their vampire goals. Typically male, they have a history of violating rules, bullying, and lying. Irresponsible and lacking insight, they tend to blame others for their misfortunes. Brushes with the law are not uncommon among advanced antisocial psychic vampires. 5S. The addictive vampire. Addictive vampires are usually preoccupied with reliving past vampire episodes and planning future conquests. They excessively and indiscriminately select their victims. In addictive vampirism, the vampire compulsion is motivated not only by urgent energy needs but by the challenge and excitement of the conquest. Similar in some ways to pathological gambling, addictive vampirism typically begins early in adulthood or during periods of excessive stress, including the midlife crisis, with the frequency of their vampire episodes progressively increasingly. As in pathological gambling, a sense of power and control often accompanies addictive vampirism. Sexual addiction also frequently accompanies this vampire lifestyle. Because addictive vampires typically center their lives around their vampire conquests, the prognosis for change is extremely poor. 6. The socialized vampire. The socialized vampire, on the surface at least, is in sharp contrast to most other forms of one-on-one psychic vampirism. Socially skilled, socialized vampires almost always present themselves as trustworthy, friendly, cooperative, and responsible. On the surface, they seem to respect the rights, feelings, and wishes of others, and they are usually seen as understanding and supportive in their relationships. For the most part, they appear emotionally stable, and they tend to conform to prevailing social norms. They are, however, not reluctant to tap the energy system of others and drain energy from them. Like other psychic vampires, they are usually defensive concerning their vampire tendencies. They tend to minimize the seriousness of their vampire conquests by rationalizing them as simply amusing encounters or harmless diversions. As might be expected, socialized vampires are seldom motivated to seek help in changing their vampire lifestyle. 7. The cyberspace vampire. The internet can be seen as a pipe that connects people, and in some instances the pipe is used to draw energy. Cyberspace vampires, as they are called, are usually experienced socialized psychic vampires who seek to expand their vampire conquests through the internet. The cyberspace chatroom provides a secure sanctuary in which psychic vampires, should they choose to do so, can remain totally anonymous while acting out their vampire impulses with impunity. Incredible as it may seem, however, sophisticated cyberspace vampires often drop clues to their identity and motivation. They have been known, for instance, to use fictitious names that start with the letter Phi, such as Vince, Val, Vanessa, Vonda, and even Vamp. The use of these clues by experienced cyberspace vampires suggests a need to flirt with self-disclosure, perhaps to add excitement to their vampire conquests. Such clues alone, however, do not conclusively indicate psychic vampirism. 8. The ambivalent vampire. This category consists primarily of inexperienced vampires who are insecure and distressed. Typically lacking self-confidence, ambivalent vampires struggle for liberation from a compulsion that overpowers their drive for independence and self-sufficiency. They are fearful that they are incapable of functioning without the supportive energy of others. Reluctantly and often with remorse, they vampirize their victims because they see no other alternative in meeting their energy needs. The prognosis for this category of vampirism is quite good. Aside from identifying specific psychic vampire lifestyles, our studies revealed wide-ranging differences in awareness levels among psychic vampires and their victims during the actual vampire attack. Although the psychic vampire episode can occur subconsciously for both the vampire and victim, the more experienced psychic vampires in our studies were usually aware of the energy infusion process that, typically, they deliberately initiated. Even when the vampire attack seemed to occur effortlessly, the experienced psychic vampire was usually aware of the process. The vampirized victim, on the other hand, was typically unaware of the vampire attack until considerable loss of energy had occurred. Even then, many victims attributed the result